This is episode 38 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today, I had the pleasure of being interviewed by my friend Michelle Warnica in her New You for a New Decade Summit. We talk about my story with food, dieting, and mindset. It's a great conversation for you to learn more about emotional eating, intuitive eating, and feeding your soul. I really hope you reach out to Michelle in her Facebook group, Creating Your Blissful Life, in order to learn more about her. Join us on this podcast as we talk about 3 ways intuitive eating has changed my life and could change yours too. What happens after intuitive eating? 4 things to do now if you're struggling with your weight, and learn what I do to feed my soul. Lastly, there's a free gift that we offer in this podcast that I'm offering out to all of you, and be sure to check back into the show notes for the link to get that free gift. Let's get started.
Hi, this is Michelle Warnica with New You for a New Decade, and I'm here with Kim McLaughlin, and we're going to talk about ending emotional eating and diet roller coastering. And her business is Feed Your Soul, so she's really taken this to heart. So hi, Kim, how are you?
Hi, good. I'm good. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and hello, everybody who's listening.
So Kim, why don't you tell us your story about, because obviously you created a business around ending emotional eating, so it must have really been a big part of your life.
Yeah, that actually, I think that that's what gives me a lot of credit. People will say, "Oh, you understand," when I share stories or when I talk about what it feels like, and I totally get it. I was the kid who gained weight when I was between 8 and 9 when my parents got divorced. You can physically see, the before and after pictures of me gaining weight. But more of what I remember is I remember being obsessed with food. I remember thinking about what I was going to eat, when I was going to eat it, what could I make, what's on the table, how am I going to get enough? And that kind of feeling of being not satisfied happened really young, and it just continued on with dieting when I was a teenager, and continuing that forward for all of the years. So that's a lot of my story. It's really about dieting and not being successful in the way I wanted to be. And I was thinking of I'm not one of those people who had been on every diet imaginable. That's not my story, but I've been on lots of the same diets over and over again. And I was just remembering today, as I was thinking of talking with all of you, is that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm not going to get into the names of what I tried, but I tried lots, and I would do it over and over again. And what was interesting to me is that I kept thinking that I was the problem, that I was the one. And so when I would think that I was the problem, that I couldn't do it right, then I would beat myself up, be really mean to myself, and say a lot of mean things. And then it would begin that diet binge shame cycle. If you start at the top, you have dieting, restricting, go around the circle to binging, then go around the circle again to shame. Then how do we deal with shame? We go back up to dieting. It's the only thing we know how to do, right? Yeah. And the more you get into it, the more you think that's the way to get out of it. But you actually have to pull out of that to get out of it. So that's my story. Has been years and years. And once I found once I realized it didn't work, that I was doing it over and over, I started to looking into different ideas. And one of them is the idea of intuitive eating. So that's really getting back in touch with your body.
Well, Kim, before we go into that, let's go back into your story a little bit. Mm-hmm. So when did you start dieting? How old were you?
And I was probably 13. I was on, it started with, I don't remember what it was called back in the day, but it would have been like a high protein kind of thing. And I remember my mom telling me that I could go on this diet if I wanted to, but it would cost a lot of money because it was a lot of buying a lot of protein, and that if I wanted to, I could do it. I was teased a lot back then, and it was like the focus of everybody seemed to be my weight. I wasn't that heavy. Like when I look back on pictures now, it's like, dang, that wasn't bad. And it was how I felt about myself and how the kind of this negativity around society. So I just started to diet, and the high protein, it works until it doesn't. The over exercising, it works until it doesn't. The heavy restricting, 500 calories a day, it works until it doesn't. For me, a lot of time is that I would do the restricting, which is whatever the diet was, and then binging, because when you say you can't have a lot of things, you want a lot of things. So the more I said, I can't have that, I can't have that, I can't have that. Well, then I'm thinking about what I can't have, and that's what I want. So that's what I go for when my energy's down, when my emotions are overloaded, then I'll show up and eat this food because, well, now I'll give myself permission to do that. And that was really my life for years. I tried all kinds of things to control my weight, but also what I was trying to control is control what kind of food I would eat. And I was really out of balance and really unhealthy. And then getting into over exercising, the over dieting would sometimes come with over exercising, and exercising in a way that wasn't healthy. And also I wasn't eating the foods to give my body the energy to do the exercise. So I would then be flat out on the couch because I was so depleted from the over exercising. So it was really that cycle. And then so it's the restricting, the binging, and then the shame, the emotional feeling. And this is where I think a lot of your folks will really resonate with the idea of really just feeling bad about myself and feeling bad about my weight, no matter what. Once again, when I look at the size back, however many years back, I go, dang, I was fine. But I had this idea that I wasn't okay. I felt ashamed of who I was based on the size, my perceived size of my body. What's interesting to me is that people I talk with about food is like, generally we look better than we think we do. They'll say, oh, I don't like it. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? And it's really such negativity towards our body that then makes us want to eat. And that's exactly my story. Is the more I would shame myself, say, what would happen is that it wasn't, it would be, I'm bad. Who I am is bad and wrong. That's that shame idea. So who I am is bad and wrong. And I now have to fix it by eating less calories. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, right? When you think about it, like, so who I am is bad and wrong, and I need to fix it by eating differently, which is going to mess up my brain, mess up my energy, mess up my emotions. But that's what we all buy into. And it took a lot of years. It took a lot of years. And it's like, I'm just not going to buy into that anymore. I don't want to have that be my story anymore, because it's so debilitating. It held me back a lot. It really made me engage in a lot of crazy behavior. The hiding food, eating in the car and sneaking it, hiding the wrappers, going in the kitchen and eating something and hoping nobody saw me, taking little bits of the cake off of, cutting it so maybe nobody could tell that some's gone. Like that's my story. And that's what it's the hiding it. Why? Because I felt ashamed, but I didn't know what else to do, because that was the only thing for those moments, right? When I'm eating, I feel good. I mean, yeah, of course. So why wouldn't I do a little more of that?
Right. Well, how long did this go on for?
Oh, it went on for years. I got married when I think when you and I were talking in our pre-call, is like, I was remembering like, when was like the final time I go, dang, I'm not doing it. And it was right before I got married. We got married 13 years ago. And I was doing one of those packaged food diets. And because, you're supposed to be thin for your wedding.
Yeah, who invented that?
Who said that? I want to stop that. It's like, you need to look different than you normally look. And so it was like, that's ridiculous. But it was packaged food that was really gross packaged food that why anybody would eat it. So I was eating food that was nasty and horrible, tasted bad because I thought it would make me lose weight. So that's when I finally go, I think something's wrong. I think I've got to, what I decided after that was, life's too short to eat crappy food. And I'm not saying that you have to engage in like eating all of whatever sweets or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that bad food is bad food. And there's a lot of diet food that I go, that food I just won't eat. It tastes horrible.
Yeah, I think you were telling me about it. There was like some powdered thing that you just add water to.
Yeah.
And so you decided, I'm not doing this. Was this before the wedding? Did you keep dieting before the wedding or no?
It was right before the wedding. It was like, I just decided I'm not doing it. It's funny because what the part of that story that I think a lot of people will resonate with is that it was a member on my team at my work. And I think a lot of people resonate with the idea of when somebody is on a diet at your workplace, it's like, what are you doing? How do I get it? How much have you lost? Sign me up. And it was that thing where we literally left in the middle of the day to go to this facility to get the package, hundreds of dollars worth of packaged food that you add water to. We had to go to this facility and get it in the middle of our work day. We did that. I don't work there anymore, so we're good. But we went in the middle of the day to get it because we all had to start now. Like that was just, it's that kind of a mob mentality around dieting. And that was, I just go, there is something really, at the end of it, I go, there is something really wrong with this concept. And I don't think I want to do it anymore. And, it gets really scary when you start noticing, I don't like the diet roller coaster. I don't like the emotional eating. I want to stop it. But then, well, we don't have any options. If you're not going to diet, like, what do you do?
Yeah. So what did you do? How did you get help?
It's really kind of, it can be really, and I'll own it for everybody. Like, it can be really scary to say, I'm done with this, but I don't want to gain hundreds of pounds. Like, that's our biggest fear. For everybody that I've talked to, our biggest fear is that we're going to gain weight and gain weight and gain weight and gain weight. And what I found is the idea of intuitive eating, which was an idea from two nutritionists. And I really respected that it was nutritionists that came up with the idea of intuitive eating. And it's really getting back to the idea that your body knows what you need. It's just we've lost track of it. When we were children, anybody who has kids know when they're hungry and they know when they're full. They might not always be able to articulate it, but their bodies know this. And we lost track of that through lots of dieting and fear of our weight. So what we talk about in intuitive eating is getting back to the body wisdom. Our body knows what it needs, and we have just lost track of it. And what people will often say to me is, well, Kim, that means then I'm going to be allowed to overeat. I get to binge. I get to eat sweets all the time. And that's literally not what it's about. If you are really listening to your body's not going to want to have sugar all the time. It just doesn't physically want that. What happens is it's not our body so much as our emotions, the mental part. Maybe sometimes it's like a physical of, I need a hit of adrenaline, I need the sugar to kind of give me energy, but it's not that we physically need that food. It's a different process that goes on. Hi, everyone. This is Kim, and my book is out, Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks.
So how do you get in touch with your body? How do you know what your body needs?
Well, I think of it, I think of it as a 6-step process, a 6-step kind of system. The first is the physical, getting in touch with physically how your body feels and what your body needs. It's getting in touch with that rhythm. It's the emotional side, is what are all of the emotions going on and how are you denying them or allowing them to lead you to, you think that you can feed those emotions through food, and it doesn't work that way. The mental side is all the thoughts that we think that are the negative thoughts that lead us to overeat. Lifestyle, how we live our life, our family issues, our friends, work, employment, money, all that comes in lifestyle. Mindfulness, being more mindful and being more connected to your body and your sense of purpose. And last, it's self-love. And I always say, like, self-love was last on the list, but it's actually really first on the list. That really it's coming back to, how do I love myself? Because I have been shaming myself all of my life. So when I come back to feeling in love with myself, I want to eat food that feels good. I want to eat food that gives me nourishment.
But it probably wasn't like that from the very beginning, right? So you gave up this, let's go back a little bit. You gave up the packaged food and then you decided this isn't for me. And you found intuitive eating online, or how did you stumble onto it?
Well, I'm a licensed psychotherapist by training, and my daughter was born almost 11 years ago. And when she was 2, I was wanting to leave my work and go open a business. So I decided to open a private practice psychotherapy business. And one of the things they talk about in marketing is a niche. And I thought, well, my niche could be emotional eating. That's exactly what I love to talk to people about. I could get behind that. And so I did a lot of studying. So I got a eating disorder certificate for specialized training. I got an intuitive eating counselor certificate. So I took a lot of training to find out, like, what are best practices and what are the best ways to work with people, so that I wasn't, so I'm not making it up. I'm going on what best practice and what research shows intuitive eating is really the best way to go to get back in touch with your body.
Is that what you did when you decided to give up the food? Did you intuitively start intuitively eating?
It's interesting you say that. I think that's a part about being drawn to things when it's the right time. I believe everybody who's listening to us talk right now is going to be drawn to the message when it's their message. And it was just the message right for me at that point in time. It really resonated. It really made sense to me. And when we talk about getting off that diet roller coaster, what are you going to do? That's the biggest fear, is what are we going to do if we don't overeat and we don't diet? What are we supposed to do? And that's where intuitive eating really gives you the handle on what does food mean for you and how can we do it differently. And that's really what it's all about. It's simple. It's just not, or it's easy. It's just not always, or what do they call it? Simple. It's just not easy. That's the thing.
That's it.
It's the thing. It takes time. It's not what we get drawn into. What I got drawn into with all those years of dieting is the quick fix. I want it fixed now. Remember the story of going to get the boxed food with all of my colleagues. It's like, how long did it take you to lose weight? What can I do? And how can I get there really fast? Because I've got this wedding coming. I've got to get the weight gone. Yeah. Well, when we start doing that, we train our bodies and train our minds that's the only way to manage food, is by either being on restriction or binging. That's all we do. Well, what I say is, let's come back into that middle spot of what does our body need and want? What's right for us right now? And that's a process. It is to me, it's a lifelong process. And it's something that can be, to me, with the emotional eating, is that it can show up for all of us. It's just, what do you have in line? What's your wellness plan to help you with it? And that's what we do, is help get that. One is identify what it is. How do you move through it? What does it mean for you? And then how do we keep this going on? And how do you know if it shows up?
And how has it changed your life?
Well, I get to talk to you today. It gives me that's a good question. It makes me feel more satisfied with my life, because I have a purpose and an idea that I think, it just resonates with me. And what's funny is that a lot of people will want to go back to the whole dieting mindset. And I think, try it out and see if it works, and then come on back. Because to me, it grounds me in, this is how I eat, this is how I live my life. But more than that, remember we talked about those 6 core components. I can look at the physical part, but I also get to look at the emotional, what's going on emotionally, what's going on in my head, in the life around me, my mindfulness, my self-love, all those areas. I get to look at that, and I get to live a more balanced life. Food, I love this. Janine Ross is, food is the doorway to your life. When you have a food issue, when you work on it, deal with it, it's the doorway to a life. And it's not about eating. Eating's a piece of it, small. It's a whole life. And that's what gets me excited.
Yeah, food is something you can't just say, me and food, we're done. I'm over food. I'm going to find another way to feed my body. You have to eat. So you have to really find a way to manage that for your life.
You literally have to come to the table every day. How am I going to, physically and metaphysically, how am I going to come to the table? And that's what this is about. And it's about how I live my life, not just about food. So that's where diets don't work, is that it's just about food. This is not food. That's just a piece of it. That's just where the issue shows up. It's all the other components, getting those all in a line. And then you have this magnificent life that feels really good. That's what I'm all in for.
Yeah. So after you, after you started doing the intuitive eating, and then did all these other things show up for you that you were like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with this now. Oh, I'm going to have to deal with this now. Oh,
well, that's interesting. I think that's life shows up. When you're not using food to keep everything down, life shows up. And what I have is, over the years, I've developed a wellness plan for myself. So I have these strategies that I use that I know work with me, or work for me, so that I can get on track. Me, like everybody else, like, I'm going to get off track. Like, everything doesn't work 100%. It takes noticing it. And then what am I going to do about it? And how I'm going to keep this going in a different direction? And what does it all mean for me? And that's where it gets exciting, because it can help you. It's really the doorway to yourself. Who am I? What am I all about? What's going on for me? And it's a so much more fulfilling way to live, and an empowered way to live, than the way I used to live.
So let's say somebody is struggling with their weight. It's their New Year's resolution. They're going to lose 20 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
What's your advice to them?
Well, I'd say start looking at, I love the idea of intuitive eating, but really start looking at, what does that diet mean for you? What are you thinking that's going to solve in your life? And really, I love journaling. Is that really going to work? Like, has it worked in the past? And if it hasn't, why do you think now will it work? And how about jumping off of that diet, restrict, binge, shame cycle that goes round and around, round and around, pulling off of it, noticing the fear of, oh my God, what am I going to do instead? And looking at the idea of intuitive eating, about getting in touch with your body. I think a lot of it comes from just noticing. How's this work? I love the question, how's this working for you? How's it worked for you in the past? And try the diet. If y'all are thinking right now, the beginning of the year, that you're going to diet, to heck with what I say, try it out, see how it works, and then come back and listen again to this recording, because I think you'll find there'll be a certain point where you're really dissatisfied and it doesn't work well. And I say, let's try something different. Let's try something that really can give you a more empowered life, an empowered way of being. And I never know what people's body sizes, what's proper for them. It's really becomes at what body size, and sometimes we think we should lose weight when our body wisdom is saying, like, let's just keep steady for a moment. And sometimes we try and fight nature, like just what our bodies are, we go against what our bodies need at that moment. And we get caught up in a number. People who are listening right now might think, oh, there's a certain number on the scale I'm supposed to be. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't know. But just noticing what's going on and how's it working for you, and could there be a better way to do it? A different way to do it.
I think you really took this to heart and wrote a book about it, right?
I did. Let me see. I wrote, oh my gosh, it's not right here. Yeah, that I should have it. It's actually back on the shelf back there. If you can see the blue book, Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food. So we're talking about all the 6-step system that I'm talking about today. I put it all in the book. It was actually really a little scary because I felt vulnerable doing it, because just like coming on this pod or on this summit, like, it's sharing my personal story, and psychotherapists, we don't do that kind of stuff. We listen.
Yeah, you're the one that hide behind the listening.
We just listen. But this is about, like, let me share with you what goes on. And that book for me was really a labor of love about getting out a different way of looking at food and a different way of looking at how we manage our lives.
So your story's in there, and your transformation, and Feed Your Soul really sounds like it's more about really feeding your soul and your being rather than your stomach.
Well, that's like when I said, the 6-step system, the last one on there is self-love, because people they wouldn't allow it to be the first. It's always like, we've got to start with the physical. Okay, we'll start with the physical. But the self-love, that's the feeding your soul, is who am I and what do I feel about myself, and where have I gotten off track with loving myself and treating myself kindly. That's a lot of what all of us don't do. Truthfully, whether there's food issues or not, we're not very kind to ourselves. And self-love, I think, is one of the best things we can do to move into a place of a greater feeling about ourselves.
That's so true. I had somebody ask me, I thought this was a really interesting question about, if you're thinking, you write down like beliefs that you have that are, really not kind to yourself. Mm-hmm. And then would you think that or say that to a good friend? Mm-hmm. And of course you would not. You would never treat anyone that you liked the way that you treat yourself. And you have those mind things going that are not affirming you as a beautiful, strong, empowered woman. They're telling you that you're not enough, that if only you lost weight, if only you made more money, if only you had the perfect guy, if only you, whatever. There's a whole list of them, right?
Right.
So really feeding your soul. I'm reading a book right now, Care of the Soul by Thomas More. Have you read it?
Yes.
It's powerful. And it's really all about that. It's so much about how we're this deep person inside. And so few of us take even time to get to know ourselves. We're so busy looking for love outside of ourselves, or by feeding ourselves with all the wrong things.
Right. And it keeps you off of that. It keeps you out of really loving yourself when we're focused on food. It detracts. You get out of the sense of really how am I feeding myself? It's I call it, what did I say? Feed your soul, nurture your life. So it's really nurturing ourselves. and feeding us in a different way, rather than using the food to give us that hit of adrenaline or feeling good for the moment. The feeling good with food lasts this long. It's very short between the food and like there's this long. But when we start telling ourselves those nice things, and what do I think, we have these longer periods of feeling good about ourselves. That's what we're looking for. And that's what I'm an advocate of.
So what are some of the things that you use to feed your soul? Since you wrote a whole book about it, you probably have a list.
Well, part of it, that actually was part of it, is really contemplating, how do I feed my soul, and what works for me. I literally do have a list. I did this a long time ago, a wellness plan of what works for me. And so I like the idea of thinking about what I would do is, like, when I'm not at my best, what does that look like? But when I'm at my best, what does it look like? And then really getting clear on, when things are going really well, these are all the things that I do. Well, then how about, as I'm starting to not look my best, so to speak, use those things there. And it's really noticing when I feel triggered, when I feel down, when I feel emotional, and then add in those wellness tools. And those are things, you guys, it's not rocket science, please. It's journaling, it's music, it's taking a bath, it's taking a walk, talking to a friend, meditation, sleeping, getting off all the devices. It's smelling a flower. Like, seriously, it's not things that cost money. It's really looking at that list of what make me feel good, and how about I do that right now. Those are those ways of self-love that really, it increases. We want to move into the positive direction of self-love, not the negative direction, right? And those are the things that just do it. Those are my things. I find that they're often kind of universal, but I know everybody else has a lot of other ideas about what would be in their wellness plan. But thinking about, when do I not look at my best, or when do I not feel my best, and when do I, and what are those things I do when I'm feeling at my best? And let's do more of those. Let's put those more in the list.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is universal, that is something that we don't always ask ourselves, is what brings me joy. Because so often we don't think about that, and we don't listen to our heart. I'm really starting to listen to my heart. Like, when I do something, if it doesn't feel good, I'm like, I'm probably not supposed to be doing that. It's not really feeling good. Or even people, sometimes you meet people, and then when you leave them, you feel tired, you have a headache, your stomach feels a little queasy, and you're like, I don't think I want to be around that person anymore.
Right.
That's just the same. To feed your soul, it's what really makes me happy, what brings me joy.
That is one of my favorite questions, is what brings me joy? What would bring me joy today? When I wake up, like, I don't know what would bring me joy today? And seriously, it can be taking a walk, or it could be something, but what would bring me joy? And I love that question. What you said is, as everything's coming up, like, well, does this bring me joy right now? Does this bring me joy right now? And if it doesn't, then what am I going to do about it? Am I going to fix the situation, or do I need to leave? Right? Do I need to say no, or do it differently? But that's one of the best questions. Does this bring me joy? I love that one. It's one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah, once you start putting yourself in more joyful experiences, your life just really kind of shifts. And all of a sudden, things become easier, and you get more in flow, because you're doing things that you like, you're around people that you like. Mm-hmm. And really, it can be a little teeny thing like that can just really make all the difference in shift in your life.
Yeah, and it can be hard, because we don't often think about that, because we allow our minds to go into all the negative. And it can sound kind of Pollyanna-ish to say, oh, be in joy. It's like, yeah, be in joy. It's harder than you think, because we can get drawn back into all the negative. And so if I at least, put it on, I love to do people will put things on their timer. So where we put on our timer, like every hour, like bing, 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 am I in joy right now? Right. And just like go into it. Am I in joy? And start making that a regular thing of what you do. Am I in joy right now? But I have clients that'll do that. That'll put a buzzer on for those kind of questions. It's super good.
I think it's challenging, because as Americans, we're really programmed to be productive. And being productive isn't always joyful. It's like, well, I really would like to take a nap right now, but I really, at the end of the day, what can I say I got done if all I did was nap and read a book?
Yeah.
But maybe that's all your body really wants you to do that day.
And maybe we don't allow ourselves to be in joy as much as we should. Like if it's feeling overloaded and overwhelming, it's like, well, maybe I haven't had enough joy for the moment and I need to get into more joy. So that's, I think, one of those questions that we can overthink it. And if I'm not in joy, if I'm working and I'm not in joy, well, what do I need to do? Do I need to take a walk right now? Do I need to pet the dog or do something like that? I mean, seriously, like who doesn't smile when they pet their dog? I don't know, like not many people. Like seriously, like it's just something. So if you're not feeling in joy, but I still have to do this task right now, okay, how about I take a 5-minute walk outside? How about I smell a flower? How about I pet a dog? And now I'm in joy. Okay, now how do I bring that joy back into what I'm doing? Right? It's that easy. We just don't do it.
Tips. Yeah, those only take 2 seconds.
It only takes a couple seconds. And I got to tell you, it has a huge effect on our brain. And there's a lot of neuroscience about the positive path, having pathways that are positive. And we've got a lot of negative grooves going on where we just go instantly to negative. And I'm saying, how about we introduce a little more positive, a little more, and start building up that muscle, so to speak.
Yes. And speaking of positive things, I know that you have a gift for all of our viewers. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, what I have is, I hope you guys sign up because it's going to be really helpful. It's the first is that my top tips to end emotional eating. And it's really about how to get connected back into your body. Right now, the beginning of the year, it's a lot of talk about dieting, and I'm going to give you a different idea about what to do to start looking at your body and looking at how you're using food in your body. And that's my giveaway. I also have in the link are a lot of blogs and different audios I've had over the years. I funneled down like which are the ones based on what we're talking about right now. And so they're really specific to what we've been talking about today. I think you guys are going to totally love it and get a lot out of it.
And where can they find you? I think you have a book, you have a podcast, so they can connect with you in all kinds of ways.
So you can find me at feedyoursoulunlimited.com, feedyoursoulunlimited.com. I have across the top, it'll show you the books, the podcast. I've got lots of blogs, lots of free stuff. Go and check it out. I do group programs for people that are really affordable for you to learn about how to look at food differently and how to treat yourself differently in all the ways we've been talking about today. But check it out, feedyoursoulunlimited.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I really, really appreciate your time. And I know that this is a very timely conversation to be having. You're going to help a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.